Welcome, champions of Earthrealm, to Back Lot Banter. We're reviewing 2021's Mortal Kombat. We've all finished the movie, and we're here to take apart the soul of it. How do you guys like that? I dropped three Mortal Kombat references in there.
After I explicitly told you no puns in the intro. But we are here to talk about the movie.
Yeah, we are. That is not a lie.
I'm going to start.
Good.
I think I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I think it's fair to say that I'm a video game fan.
You're a
Well,
gamer,
hold on,
if you
hold
will.
up. Since when, Abram? Since when?
Well, here's the deal. Going into this movie, I have never played a Mortal Kombat game. I have never seen a Mortal Kombat movie. This was my first exposure outside of a lot of Mortal Kombat is in the zeitgeist. So when they yell finish him and flawless victory and all this shit, I got it,
Yeah.
right? But on the whole, this is my first exposure to Mortal Kombat. I think it's fun. I think it's a fun movie that's really poorly constructed and
Well.
and skates by on the fact that it has some pretty well choreographed action sequences that are fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that is basically the conceit. This movie isn't going out to be The Godfather, okay? This is going out to be the new Mortal Kombat. I've played a few Mortal Kombat games. Anna, my girlfriend, is a big Mortal Kombat fan. We watched the 1995 original movie together in preparation for this. I will say, 2021 movie is better.
Good.
But yeah, it's just a lot of fun, you know. We get a new character, we get some classics. I mean, they do a bunch of references, a lot of that are not very subtle, but it's Mortal Kombat. You don't need the subtle references and everything. It's a video game movie, and maybe one of the best. Well, maybe we'll get into that, but I liked it. I liked it too.
Yeah, I don't think you're out of turn to say that this is not a good movie, but it's very fun. I think
Yeah.
that's the summary of it. You know, we have a friend in our Discord, link in the description, by the way. Subscribe and like while you're down there. I got to put the plugs in somewhere, but who was saying, "God, this is a terrible movie," and it's not offensively bad. It's
a
not
Mortal Kombat movie.
It's not well made,
No.
but it is not a bad film. You go into it looking for action, looking for special effects, looking for those classic lines, looking for the characters to show up, and it delivers. And I think it does that all in a fun, concise package.
So I have to push back on the idea that this movie isn't offensively bad because I think that objectively it's near irredeemable. I think that the editing is terrible. I think the script is terrible. I think I was forgetting the plot as it was unfolding. I'm not sure there was a plot. And I think beyond those fundamental issues, I think the biggest problem the movie has, irrespective of it being fun, is that you watch the entire thing waiting for Mortal Kombat stuff to happen.
Well, funny you say that, Abram, because famously in this movie, Mortal Kombat doesn't happen.
Right.
This is a prequel. It's called Mortal Kombat, but in reality, it is a prequel to Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre, but also I was watching to wait for Scorpion to show up, and Scorpion says, "Get over here." You get the flawless victory. The moments that stand out are the moments that you come into the film waiting for, which makes a lot of it kind of downtime. I think the new character is really boring. I think that actually the movie is really bad, to be honest with you. But I don't but I think these contradictory ideas can be held in tandem. The action is really cool, and ultimately that's what I wanted. It's 90 minutes. It doesn't waste your time. There's some dialogue exchanges that are really poor, but the film understands that it's not very good and it doesn't have a very high budget clearly. So I think it leans into that to make something that is still entertaining and knows it doesn't have to be more than that, especially when it's just an HBO Max freebie, at least for me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how we watched it as well.
I feel like it is a HBO Max freebie because I don't think this is a rush out to the theaters to see this kind of thing. It's rated R. It's for a more niche audience than Godzilla versus Kong. This is one for the fans, the true fans.
I think it is, but also people talking about it MCU-ifying Mortal Kombat, which you can kind of feel. I don't think it's a very good sequel bait film. I don't know. I think it's kind of one that everyone comes back to life.
You don't want to see who they get to play Johnny Cage, Abram? Come on now. No. Classic character, Johnny Cage.
Yeah, the Johnny Cage, who's been recast as Johnny Cage is something going around on the internet right now.
Yeah.
But I think what this film does is, and obviously there is a little bit of sequel bait, and obviously, as we said, it's the tournament of Mortal Kombat does not happen in the film. This is all set up for, a presumed sequel where that does happen. But I think what this film actually does do, which I was surprised by, is it balances its large cast of characters relatively well. There are a handful of who don't get, Kung Lao, I think, is in particular,
Kung Lao.
who don't get enough time, and the villains certainly do not get enough time. But the fact is that we've got, I wrote down the actors and their characters on the back, and I wrote down a fucking lot of them, because there are a lot of characters in this movie, and I think all things considered, I felt like they all got enough screen time. They had equal amounts of not very good development, but development. and I was just like, all right, I can keep track of where everyone is and what's going on, until the fights started, which were the editing just went blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And that certainly tumbled. But I liked that they had a big cast of characters. You got to see a bunch of them, very diverse set of characters with different powers and stuff, so it gave it a lot of flash.
I hate to be Patrick pushback in this review, but I don't think that I disagree with that also. I feel like if you've ever read the classic Oliver Twist, if you're a bunch of little boys waiting for a little bit of gruel every day, that's everyone getting an equal amount of food, but not nearly enough.
Mm-hmm.
There is no characterization in this movie of anybody. I think you have to come into it.
That is just blatantly false.
I mean, yeah, you get Cole's backstory, but all the other Mortal Kombat characters show up with the understanding that you know who Raiden is, you know who Scorpion is, you know who SubZero is, and that's that. I don't think the film understands that people have preconceived notions of these characters and says, okay, fine, here's a person you recognize. You get a couple throwaway lines here and there, but ultimately, I don't really think that's very good character development. The only person that does get developed is Cole, but ultimately, Cole is basically the human storyline in a Godzilla movie. You're not here to see him. So that it feels boring and it feels misplaced that all of the characterization in the movie goes to the least interesting guy whose power ends up being, I've got the Wonder Woman like eagle armor. I don't think that the movie has very good characterization.
I think for me, I misinterpreted your characterization as personality, because I think these characters do have very clear personalities, and they bounce off of each other in fun ways. They do have clearly defined roles in the story, which is what I was impressed by, that they didn't really feel homogenized. You were given enough lines and sequences from each of them. You're like, okay, I know who this person is. You don't know why they're there particularly. You don't know exactly where they came from, but I was especially pleased with Kano, who I think is just the fucking highlight of this movie by a country mile, who is played by a reasonably decent actor. He's got solid line delivery. He's funny as fuck. And I mean, he was my favorite character through the whole thing.
Interesting. If we're going to talk about characters, interesting fact about everyone's favorite legacy character, Cole Young, obviously, who they definitely didn't invent for this movie. I'm just kidding. They obviously did, because the studio apparently forced the director and the writers of this to create Cole Young.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we need like an insert new character for the audience to latch on to. So maybe they weren't going to do that in the first place, but those darn bigwigs over at Warner Brothers stamping on the little guy, and us, the real fans who want Mortal Kombat.
The thing is, I don't think Cole is a very interesting character. I think he's probably one of the weaker characters in the movie, very clearly. I don't think he has a great personality. His backstory is pretty lame, but I don't mind the idea of having a new character for the movies that you introduce the world to and all of that stuff, because the idea of Mortal Kombat is no one is exactly the main character. Of course, Scorpion, the sort of, and SubZero, the sort of like, poster children, if you will. But not having a main character that is one of the characters we're familiar with, I think, is fine. Unfortunately, Cole wasn't the proper way to do that, I don't think.
I think the other problem is that there's just a lot going on in the world of Mortal Kombat, that the last thing you need to do is introduce a boring random human character when we've got, hold on, there's realms. Keep in mind, I don't really know much about Mortal Kombat, so I think it's important as my perspective.
If you don't know there's realms in Mortal Kombat, there's not much I can do to help you, Abram.
Well, Abram, let me tell you, the hell realm that Scorpion is sent to is called Netherrealm, which you may recognize as the studio who makes Mortal Kombat. It is a reference to the game series they make. Fun fact. Trivia there.
That's a fun IMD
so
trivia.
There are realms. It's in the title.
But my point is, like, there's like an out realm, and these people are coming into the realm, and they're like, the movie takes so much at face value that I think, you got to decide, are you trying to tell this story for the fans of the characters we love, or are you trying to kind of bring it to the mainstream and you're going to introduce this new character? But if you're going to do that, A, make him interesting, and B, explain what the fuck is happening in the movie.
What every theater and a home that streams Mortal Kombat needs is two people like Anna and I to explain the lore and the character dynamics to troglodytes like you and Tucker.
I got some of that actually. I watched it with a buddy that lives on the floor.
Oh,
He's a
okay.
big Mortal Kombat fan. So
There you go.
we did some pausing, we did some talking. I did download Mortal Kombat 10 last night. I haven't played it yet.
KX.
Isn't
Yes.
oh no, X is part of the PS Plus collection.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is why I downloaded it.
So, but I mean, you're right in the fact that there's just so much weird lore that they only touch on. One thing that I do think is good that they reframed for the film is introducing the concept of the brand, the mark, and how that sort of ends up being like a mutant powers that manifest in a certain way. And you're like, okay, if you have the mark, you can participate. All that. I thought that was pretty clear. I'm glad they introduced that. And it's just a certain aspect that I was like, okay, I can grab onto this. I can see these characters have the mark. This is where they get the superpowers, all that. It wasn't, it's not great, but I'm glad they introduced something new in terms of lore element there.
That was something that I wasn't really crazy about. Maybe it's because I'm a purist, but the whole idea of Mortal Kombat is like, yeah, you get these like weird demons from outer world, and you get like FBI agents doing Mortal Kombat as well. You just get everybody. But when you give everyone superpowers, that just it taints it a little bit. It waters it down, like the different sort of characters and their moves, but also like what they can do in the story if we're talking about a movie. I just didn't like the idea of you all get superpowers. You all can shoot beams from your hands and fire and ice and various other things. I wasn't a fan of that.
All right, fuck it. This isn't Quest for the Best. Let's talk about action sequences now.
Okay,
because
thank you.
The whole movie is just a vehicle for people to fuck each other up, which is
okay. Which is the best one? Let's start off with that. What's the best action sequence? What's the best kill? Because I know mine. I feel like I'm gonna put it out there before anyone else can say it. It's the Kung Lao like hat kill where he slices Nitara in half.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
the best action sequence is the opening. The opening like 6 minutes of this movie are so much better than what follows. I think. I think that's probably the best action sequence, but also the final Scorpion SubZero fight.
Yeah, that's a great one too.
I think that one's cool because you get to see the characters using Mortal Kombat moves, and you're like, okay, it's sort of played out in a a 2D area where they're using their moves on each other. Like, oh, I've seen SubZero use that kind of move before and make the wall and fucking send the ice and stuff. But honestly, that one didn't really hit with me as much. I kind of liked when they were just doing training, fighting each other. I thought that, maybe it was because they were holding back a little bit, but you got them bouncing off each other in a little more dynamic way. But I also really liked SubZero just absolutely fucking jacks up at the beginning. That was a good
Oh,
fight.
yeah.
Ending with chopping off the arms and kicking them off a thing. Holy shit.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
In a film with kind of subpar special effects, the SubZero's ice looked pretty awesome.
Yeah.
When he's shattering people's arms.
Yeah. I mean, all of his ice effects I think are pretty good. When Jack shoots his thing and the spray of the bullets is frozen, that looked really fucking good.
Of course, juxtaposed with Jax's arms, which were probably the worst CGI.
Oh no. Oh no.
Also, Goro. Look what they did to my boy Goro. They made him look like a goddamn World of Warcraft character.
Yes. Yeah, he did, but that's just kind of how Goro looks.
Well, he looks a bit more unique but they just gave him kind of an orc face,
The classic arcade bicycle kick from who was that? Liu Kang, who does
Liu Kang!
Yeah.
Whatever. That's the sound that he makes when he does it. There's another one. Oh, I forget. Oh, the Kano wins thing when he kills Reptile. He grabs his heart.
Oh, the Reptile fight's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, which is obviously a classic Mortal Kombat thing, is you grabbing the heart, and he says Kano wins. Which is another. I also like Kano. I should point that out. I thought about 70% of his lines were good, and the rest of them was like, okay, I see where he's going with it. Okay, Kano, let's just take a seat here. All right.
His fight against Sonya was pretty cool. Also,
yeah,
sort of like Kill Bill Volume 2 style.
It was very Kill Bill.
Except how it ended, because I was like, all right, we're getting all these different fights. We're actually just literally doing like video game to screen things where it's a 1v1. I'm like, all right, let's see these fatalities, and then Sonya kills him with a garden gnome.
Yeah.
I honestly I don't think there was really any bad action sequences.
Yeah.
I think the only badness comes from the editing, just kind of that multi-fight when they're in like Raiden's lair or
Yeah,
whatever.
the Raiden's temple. Yeah.
Such a
Oh no.
mess.
Yeah.
My favorite.
Where'd the hammer guy go? What are like
It's a
what Luke
lot of
fighting fucking Cabal? Like what's going on? Oh, there's a pterodactyl lady flying above. It's like
yeah.
and Sonya's trapped under a rock, but she's fine. She's
Yeah,
fine.
well, it's a lot of
And
where'd that character go? Oh, this
yeah,
person's back. They just forgot about this guy for like 5 minutes, apparently.
Shang
Uh,
Tsung and SubZero just they're just standing back. They're just viewing. They're just
yeah,
looking what's going.
yeah.
Where's Raiden? I don't fucking know.
Well, yeah, he's the lightning god. Also, they say like, Raiden, you can transport anyone anywhere, right? I'm like, hold on, Raiden, you can do what? Just teleport all these guys to the middle of the ocean. What are you doing?
Well, because he can also Shang Tsung can also teleport.
Well,
Smoky
leave Shang
teleportation.
Tsung. It's fine. And they all team up on Shang Tsung. Listen, it's a weird plot hole. We're gonna ignore it because movie's not great overall. So it's not productive to nitpick little things like that.
Yeah.
I was pretty impressed by the gore in the fight sequences.
Yeah, when
It's
he guts Goro or whatever, that was pretty good.
That was pretty good. I think especially in that opening fight between, is it Hanzo or am I thinking
Hanzo,
of Kill Bill? No, it's
Hanzo,
Hanzo
and Ben
versus,
He,
yeah,
No,
like
Bihan.
Bihan. Sorry.
I didn't know if they were going to kind of tone down the gore a little bit or they're kind of save it for the fatalities, but throughout people are really fucking each other up,
Yeah,
which is pretty.
there's lots of taking off a mask and blood and snot coming out of your nose and your mouth. That's great stuff.
And on top of that, I mean, even what you were talking about with that opening sequence with SubZero sort of fucking up all those guys, they were like bleeding a lot. Like it was
Oh
overkill.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
every slice was just like swoosh, and I'm like,
Every
all
time
right, you know
someone got
what? I'm
stabbed,
down
it
for
was.
this. No, but I liked it. I mean, it gave it an
Yeah.
over the top feel that is like, okay, this is the
Yeah.
campy cartoonishness that the series is known for, and I think they did it well. I really wish that the blood over the top blood had actually continued a little more throughout. I thought it was a little toned down on gore. It was
Mhm.
saved for the
I
fatalities,
think
which is
so
fine.
too. Yeah.
But I think that having every hit just splurt blood is what happens in the games,
Yeah.
and I think it would have been fun for them to continue that a little more throughout.
Yeah. Simon McCoy or whatever put in X-ray hits. You coward. Just do it. Just go all
Oh,
out.
that would have been so
Yeah.
cool.
So, I mean, on that note, before we wrap up, what do you want to do about a sequel? Because here's what I want to do. Give it to fucking Gareth Evans and just call it a day.
Who's that again?
Okay.
Have you seen the Raid movies?
Yeah, the Raid is obviously a good one to go off of there.
Yes.
But that's more grounded, I think you do want to go a bit supernatural with it.
Yeah, but I think having like those fundamentals, like get Eco
Yeah,
Waste
I
and
guess
Gareth
so.
Evans
Yeah.
back and choreograph some really cool shit and then boost that up with special effects. I
Mhm.
think what was so cool about that opening is the way that it was a little bit more grounded. You could see what everyone was doing, but it had that Mortal Kombat, bloody edge to it. And then, you throw in like fucking some costumes, some powers,
You
on
throw in
top
a
of what
Johnny
Gareth Evans can do.
Cage.
There you go. Then you got a pretty
Mhm.
cool movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall there's a few things we didn't really touch on. I think the set design, I think the costume design, I think those are all really good. I think
Yeah.
this film, while you said it did have a lower budget, I think it did a lot with that budget. The
I
special
agree.
effects
Yeah.
on the whole, we had a few moments where we're like, oh, that doesn't look good. Oh, that's it. That green screen does not work. But
When,
those were
when Luke-
relatively
yeah.
few and far between when you're considering that this was a pretty small budget and
Mhm.
everything is special effects and everything. And then they've got good costumes and good sets. So I think, they did what they could, and I think it worked.
True. Is that all of our final note? Or here, I have a fun little thing to go off. Quick, off the top of your head, Johnny Cage. Who you casting? You're in the casting chair. Who you casting as Johnny Cage? Tucker.
Abraham has to look up who Johnny Cage is.
Oh.
Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, Chris Hemsworth. I was gonna say Chris Evans. Just complete the Trinity and say Chris Pine.
That's just not a bad one.
What if we get like John Hamm?
Oh, okay. Like he could do it like an aged, out of work action star.
Or like Ben Affleck?
Yes, actually, yeah. Do Ben Affleck. Yeah.
Well, but he he can't do the action, so that defeats the purpose.
Well, no, make him put the muscle back on. That man is just broken, and he's been dieting for so long now. Just do it again. It's easy, Ben. I'm just kidding. Yeah, he did some great work as Batman, and I appreciate it, Ben. I know you watch these, so
Yeah, he's
all
real
right.
close.
Let
There
me
we
just let me just say before we go,
Yeah.
this has nothing on the Sonic movie. The Sonic movie is my now gold standard for video game movies.
Well,
Fascinating. That's
it's
a
my
low
brown.
bar.
It is my brown standard because it's poop. It's a poo shit movie. But with
that
that,
movie's really
everyone,
That's
bad.
fair.
yeah, it is. With that, everyone, I'd say that was a flawless review.
That's a word they say in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, we did it, baby.
Mortal Kombat.
Do 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 do.
Yeah. All right. Good to know.